What's up, everybody? Welcome to our 20th. How about that? Our 20th episode of Josh Says Mean Things. Look at that. How's everybody tonight? I hope y'all are safe out there. I know that the weather has been crazy here in Central Texas. If you're in Central Texas like I am, it's still thundering outside my window right now. So it is not my stomach growling. It is just thunder. So yeah, this is going to be a fun. I feel like I haven't talked to you guys in like a month. We didn't do a Lightroom Live this month. And so, yeah, I just feel like I haven't talked to everybody in a while. For some of y'all, we saw y'all last night. We had a fun Patreon exclusive shoot last night. It was really cool. We did neon lights of 6th Street downtown Austin with light wands and speed lights and steampunk models, and it was fun. Good times. Yeah. I know, it is weird, Kendra. I agree that it's... Oh, yeah, and Kendra, you took this photo, right, Kendra? I think so. But look, it's me talking behind me. Ooh. That's kind of weird. But I've been trying to put these as a background to keep track of the videos. I got my chai tea. It's good. It's kind of cold outside. But I'll take that for this time of year in Texas, you know. Yeah, so we have a good batch of photos today. Some different types of submissions from people. People like Miguel, who usually sends travel photos, sent me an abstract. We have some family photos. We have some food photos, so we can talk some food. I want to talk family. And then a couple people, or I guess just one person, Chris sent me one that she wanted me to do an edit on. So I'm going to show you my edit. And then maybe what I've done differently. Yeah, Jess sent us a cool photo of a portrait. Her photos have really just kind of hit a new level. I'm really excited for my good friend Jess. Miss Jess Jade. She's also designed some cool logos and graphics for us. But yeah, I'm really excited to see kind of her take that next jump. Her Instagram feed's been very cool lately. And so we're going to talk about how to take the next step. And then what is the next step? And then how hard work is that? So we'll talk some about that, yeah. And if you have questions, feel free, as always, to throw them in the chat. As always, let me know who's out there listening. Yeah, because it's fun. I like knowing who. It looks like we have a pretty lively chat going on today, so that's good. If you see me always darting over, it's because I'm looking at my screen here, and then I see the chat in that window. So if you see my eyes darting around like an untrustworthy trial defendant, where were you at the time of the murder? I don't know. Yeah, no, that's not me. I'm just looking at the chat window, so I was so bad that I'm looking away from the camera. It's so hard to talk directly into the camera all day. It's kind of strange. All right. Enough about all of that. Hey, speaking of neon photo walks, look at this. First photo up. This is from Miss Madison Beatty. Madison is kind of part of the whole farmhouse photography group down in Marion. And it's weird to say Madison graduated college, but I met her in high school when I was doing photo workshops down for Marion ISD. So shout out Marion. And shout out Madison. Thanks for coming out with us last night. It was great. It was great having you. So this is her photo. I was probably holding a light stick at the time. Bill was out there with a light stick as well. Kendra was with us. But yeah, this is cool. So we did some red, cyan, red, blue. One light stick was in red, one was in green, kind of cyan, bluish. And we had this kind of moody sky in the background. So yeah, it was really fun. We had some really fun models, Miss Sarah, Miss Savannah. If y'all read today's Patreon post, the Instagrams are on there. So I think it's The Plate and Siempre Sav. If anybody needs their tags, I will throw them in the chat. So here's my critique of this. I do like the framing. I like the composition of the model that's brighter. Sarah, with the green on the face, is in front, right? So we know what to look at, right? So the bright is where our eyes want to go, so that's good. I just feel like there's a lot of dead space above. I think this might have worked better as an 8x10 crop and gotten rid of those top 2 inches, right? Instead of an 8x12, maybe an 8x10. And I think that could have been a stronger way to go. And then also with Lightroom or Photoshop, maybe intensifying the sky a little bit more and really bringing that out to make it feel more moody. I played a lot when I edited my set of these. I played a lot with, so in Lightroom, you can go into not just normal tone curves, but the individual color tone curves. So there's one for like red, green, blue, yellow, and then the other one, pink, whatever. There's three of them. And by adjusting those curves, you can really shift the colors around. And I think a photo like this where we have like crazy looking models, not crazy, but like very intense looking models and very intense lightings, I think this background just kind of falls short. So in post, making that background as intense and as out there as what we're doing with the lighting, as what we're doing with the posing, as what we're doing with the hair and makeup, like making all of those things work together. I just feel like the background kind of let some of this photo down. So that's what I would fix. That's my main thing. All right, let's see if we can get this to work. Next, there we go. Ooh, see, now I want a Dr. Pepper. The easiest way to tell if your food photo worked is, do I want to eat or drink that thing? Not gonna lie, I want a Dr. Pepper now. So I appreciate Ronnie for sending this one in. I really like this. I think it's also good that she got 7 Dr. Pepper cans in the back, right? So she's obviously been listening when I talk about rule of odds. And no, I'm not just talking about myself. Rule of odds says humans like 1, 3s, 5s, 7s. We don't really like 0s, 2s, 4s, 6s, 8s. So I like that. I think I like the background. I love the ice cubes. I'm curious if those are fake ice cubes, or if they're real ice cubes. So Ron, if you can let us know in the chat, are they fake ice cubes or real ice cubes? I'm kind of curious. But I love the bubbles. I love seeing all the carbonation in the glass. Some things that would help for food photography, making that glass look like it was sweating. So there's something called matting spray, or dulling spray. You can get it at Home Depot. And it'll matte that glass up a little bit to make it look frosted. And then you can get a mixture of half water, half glycerin, and it will make it look like it's sweating down the side. Fake ice cubes. I thought so. They were too uniform. I could tell. But then they would make that glass look like it was sweating without having to go at a different temperature. So if you're looking to take that next step in food, that's some stuff you might want to look at. Make it look like the mug was frosted, and then put that kind of condensation on the outside to really make it feel like it's cold, right? Because from this photo alone, I can't tell if it's cold as the basis poster board. Yeah. So glycerin will stay and it won't run down. It'll just stay on the glass. And so you can do it like on the top third of the glass without it running down onto the poster board. You could also do it on the can. Just something to try. Don't try it without on like your good poster board, but just try it sometime to see. Half water, half glycerin, right? That might work. The other thing that I would say is that I kind of want. I don't know if I like the glass and the mug on the same level. I think maybe staggering one or the other, so one slightly in front or one slightly behind, and then kind of posing them. Think of it like a couple posing, and they're just kind of standing there, not really interacting. And so by putting one forward and one behind and then shifting it, right? Then we can make them feel like they're closer together and they're interacting a little bit more. Or if you had a spare hand, you could have somebody pouring the Dr. Pepper. Just ideas. But overall, I like this. I really like the background of all the Dr. Pepper cans. I think that's super fun. So, and I do want a Dr. Pepper, so I'm being smart and drinking my chai tea so that I don't drink a bunch of Dr. Pepper right before bed. It's been a long, 10 days. We've been super busy. We've had either a class, a patron shoot, or a client every day for the last 10 days. So, it's been kind of crazy around here. Yeah, so this one's from Miss Laura Miller. I don't know if her last name is Miller anymore. We just shot her wedding last year. I don't remember what her new wedding is. Spray? I don't remember which one's which. Anyway, she says she shot this recently. She's very excited. And I love the dappling on the back. I think that's really cool texture. And I think her pants also have that dappling texture inherent to them. I'm not 100%, but that's what it feels like. Here's my suggestion for this photo. I like the pose as it is. It's a good photo as it is. Okay? It's a good photo as it is. But if we want to take those photos to the next, we're going to be talking about next level today, right? How to take them to the next step. I think this photo would be much more interesting shot with her face with all that grit on it. If y'all saw my cheese grater post this week, right? Kind of a full body cheese grater, right? Where we have all those holes on the dapple light underexposed for it so that We see those highlights, shadows on her face. I think that could be interesting. I'm also curious what's creating this pattern. Is it like a netting? Is it? I'm not sure what it is. But I do like the pose. I generally don't like squatting poses. It just doesn't do much for me. But I like the way her face is kind of like very contemplative. I think that kind of makes it strong. And then it's in the shadows, but there's still legibility. I think that's good. I would like to maybe have seen a hand somewhere in there, either on one knee or on the thigh or somewhere in there, just to be able to get that. We can get more information from somebody by seeing the hand, right? Hands, eyes, lips. That's kind of what we want to see for portrait. But yeah, I think this would be very interesting just to flip her 180 and then shoot her with all of that netting, really doing fun stuff with her face. So that'd be my one. But I do like the black and white tonality here. Yeah, cool. Thanks, Laura. Appreciate it. All right. This one's from Chris. What do you think, Chris? I hope you like this one. I spent like 20 to 30 minutes in Lightroom on this. So Chris sent me this photo, and she was doing two things with it. She was doing both a golden, yeah. She was doing both a starburst sunset and a long exposure for the water. Here's the hard part about this. Chris did this the hard way, which is trying to get it all in one exposure. This is a great example of where just a great example of where the cameras fall short, right? The human eye can see like 2 to the 22nd in information, right? Humans can see, our eyes can see a huge amount of range, right? I can see my monitor, I can see detail in a black speaker right next to me, right? I can see all these lights around me. Cameras can only see a much smaller range. This camera, I think maybe like 2 to the 12th, 2 to the 13th. And so like getting that starburst exposed and getting the water that's in the shadows exposed is really hard. Okay, that's just for any camera. It's a hard thing to do. And so I think this would be a great place for a bracket, right? So if you take 3 raws bracketed, right? Like I usually do, like for my cameras, I usually do +1, -1, -3, or like +2, -1, -4. These big raw brackets. And then on Lightroom, we can select all 3, right click, photo merge, HDR. And it's not what you think. It's not that like 10 years ago HDR where everything looks like overdone. It's just creating a new raw file from those 3 raw files to give you an expanded range. I don't know if you can see this on the YouTube stream, but the shadows where the water's falling are pretty broken up. They're very sad. No, the file is starting to fall apart. I had to boost it like 3 stops in the shadows. Yeah, it was pretty, but it had to be underexposed to get that sunburst to do that. It's not a mistaken exposure. It's just that's what the scene was. And so I think that's where a bracket might help. Yeah, just bracket. When we're shooting into the sun, I just almost always bracket because the range of exposures and tonalities, right? The shadows in the trees, the shadows, underneath that tree in the very dark spot versus the highlight in the sky. It's just a very big thing. The other thing you can do at capture, right, there's 2 things, right? A circular polarizer is going to bring down the exposure in the sky a little bit. You're still going to have the overall tonality problems. But this is also a scene where maybe like a graduated neutral density might help, right? Where we can bring down some of the brightness in the sky and then let that foreground be a little bit brighter relative to the sky. So a graduated neutral density might also be useful. I don't carry one with me. That's just me. I don't really shoot landscapes ever. No, I just don't shoot them enough to like have that part of my kit. But that's what they're there for, right? We have a bright sky. We have a dark foreground. How can we balance those out? You took off a 6th up, Indy. Interesting, to get that star. Yeah, because to get the star, you need to be f/16 or above for an 8-bladed aperture, depending on your lens. Depends on the lens. You need double whatever your blades in your aperture are. So a 9-bladed aperture, you need f/18. 5-bladed aperture, you need f/10. anyway, that's how the star thing works. So yeah, good photo. I could absolutely see what you're going for. It just required it. I have a lot of localized adjustments in Lightroom on this. And then I also used a lot of the HSL panel. So I darkened the blue, I brightened the yellows and oranges, and I did some other stuff with brightness and stuff. But yeah, a lot of localized filters. I think getting your base tonality with the big things, and then do a lot of like radial and graduated. I also cropped in a little bit. So yeah, I would have liked to have seen what your original process was. I didn't see your original JPEG, so I wasn't sure kind of which way you went with it, but it was fun to play with. But yeah, there you go. Golden. Yeah, this one's from Miss Emily. Hello, Miss Emily. That's a cute little puppy in this photo. So let's talk family photos. We have a couple family photos in this edition. Family photos are interesting. Let's talk about negative space too, right? A lot of times when we're shooting family photos, they're going for holiday cards. They just are. And so a lot of times we need to have that negative space for them to put happy holidays from the whomevers, right? So my first gut reaction was, man, there's a lot of dead space in this photo. I love the out of focus leaves leading up to the person, and I like a little bit of the green and yellow above them. But I think the upper right and the upper left, I just think there's a lot of dead space. But then I started thinking, oh, this is probably for a holiday card. They probably needed that space to put text over. So it's weird too, like how we shoot headshots, but how I shoot for magazine covers are different, because for magazine covers I need to leave room above the head so they can put text. So just little things like that you may not think about. I didn't think about it the first time I did it, and I got in trouble because I was shooting too tight, because I always try to crop in camera. Not always advantageous when they need to have a bigger canvas to put text around the person. It can feel weird shooting center point focus on a portrait, but sometimes that's what you need to do to get for the layout, right? So if you know you're shooting for a layout, shoot for the layout. Kind of goes without saying. Anyway, let's talk about this photo. I love the blues. I love the blues contrasted with the yellows. I think that's all great. I think their faces are a touch underexposed, like a little bit. But I also really love the way the dog's just chilling there. Most dogs don't sit that well for that long. So I was at Precision this week, and they were doing pet portraits. And they had one person shooting and one person wrangling, and another person like helping to wrangle. Like anytime you add an animal to a photo, just increase your difficulty by 10x. It's just always harder. So yeah. The other thing I would say about this is the guy feels a little stiff. I feel like he's doing a really good job of sitting tall. But I don't know. I think I would have liked his hand on her shoulder, not on the side. It just feels like a floating hand there. I would have liked to have seen it a little. It would have bent his arm and just kind of made it a little casual on the shoulder there. So that'd be my posing tip. Also, it looks like the leaves are kind of like coming into his head. I'm not sure if they are, but that's what it looks like. I don't know how you would have fixed that. So, but it's cute. I think this photo works overall. These are just little things that I would. Oh, big rumble, big rumble. That's what my voice sounds like when I wake up in the morning. Hey, how you doing? All right, yeah. All right, cool. Another one from Ronnie. Ronnie goes straight to my heart and puts Dr. Pepper and Bluebell. So this one again, right? Rule of odds. We have a bowl of ice cream, a bucket of ice cream, a bowl of ice cream. Right? Another rule of thirds. Not rule of thirds. Rule of odds. I feel the cropping on this one is in that in between. It's not quite cropped in, and like the things are like right on the edge, like they're touching the edge, but I would have either come out a little bit more or come in a little bit more. It just feels that uncertain. The other thing with this photo that I struggle with is what is the viewer supposed to be looking at? Are we supposed to look at the bowl of ice cream in the foreground, or are we supposed to be looking at the Bluebell bucket in the middle ground? And so what I would have done, I would have accentuated the difference between the foreground and the bucket, and then kind of put one relative to the other. So slide the ice cream in front and then the bucket a little behind. And then I would have actually scooted the back ice cream a little bit more so that we see more of the bowl. Because there's still some dead space at the very top. So the top of the bucket and the top of the ice cream in the back are the same level. And so to break up that level, if we move that ice cream back, they would be at different levels, and that would really make for a stronger triangle. Composition-wise. Now, that being said, I really like the lighting on that front scoop of ice cream. I think that looks really good. It's not the traditional backlight that you would normally see. It's kind of more of a side light, but I think it really works for this. I think that ice cream, honestly, that ice cream with the other things more in the background, more out of focus, I think would be very interesting too. But I think that's really well done. I love the texture of the ice cream and how it's like just at that, like just starting to melt, just soft. I want ice cream now too. I'm gonna have to go do a Dr. Pepper float after this, right? Get a little Dr. Pepper. I know exactly, Steven. You read my mind there. Dr. Pepper Bluebell float. We got some homemade vanilla. I got some Dr. Peppers in the fridge. I don't think it's gonna work with my chai tea. I don't think Bluebell and chai tea is the way to go with that though. Not so much. But yeah, I see where you're going with all this, and I can see like your work in progress, Ronnie. It's looking good. Like your lighting's gotten pretty good. Your exposures have gotten better, right? You're taking those next steps. So kudos to you. Just keep working at it. Just keep playing with compositions. But yeah, looking good. Everybody's wanting to eat Dr. Pepper and ice cream, so you did your job, right? You made us hungry and thirsty. So very good. All right, this is from Jessica, not Jess. I know it's confusing, but we have Jessica and Jessica. But this is from Jess. She said this is unedited, but just wants some feedback on it. So first of all, I love that how close everybody is, that they're leaning to the camera. It shows engagement. It shows a photographer that gives directions, because most clients wouldn't do this normally, right? So it shows that good direction, which is what we're supposed to be doing. We're directors. Honestly, that's our job, is to direct the scene. And so I think that's really good. Let's talk about shooting. So everything's green outside right now, right? We have green grass, green trees, all those good things. So I'll give you a little pro tip on a shot like this. For family photos, if you're interested in doing them, I take a black blanket with me and I put it on the ground in front of our clients. I might shoot a photo like this. We don't see the black blanket, but what it does is it neutralizes the sun hitting that green grass and bouncing back up under people's chins. You can't really see it on the adults, but if you look at the two kids, they kind of have this green tint under their chins. So a cool thing to do, if you have a reflector, throw it to the black side, right below, so that the light bouncing up from the leaves isn't underneath people's jaw lines. It just makes people look a little alien. But I love their smiles. I love the expression. I love how close they are. I love that there's a lot of touching, right? It's a family. It feels like a very close-knit family. And it's definitely something that they would want to put on their Christmas card, hang on their wall, right? It kind of shows who they are. Everybody's got a good expression. We got good smiles. Everything's working there. Yeah, just the only thing I would say is, and I know you told me it's unedited, right? Just a little boost in exposure, a little bit out of the green channels. But for those of you who are shooting family portraits this time of year, right? The weather's nice, the grass is green, you got pretty backdrops. Just take either a 5-in-1 reflector and put it to the black side, or bring like a black, I carry a 10x10 black blanket, which is also then useful if they want to sit on it or throw gear on it or whatever. If the ground's a little damp, if you're shooting in the morning, it's just sometimes nice to have a blanket. But yeah, good job, Jessica. Thank you for the photo. All right, this one's from another farmhouse and Marion photographer, Miss Judy Beck. Love the silhouette. Love the perky ears. My wife rides horses. My son's named Colt. I've been around a lot of horses. It is hard to get the perky ears. Whenever my wife judges the photos that I've taken of horses, the first thing she critiques me on is, that's a great photo. The lighting's pretty, but the ears aren't perky, so you can't use it. So good job there. I love the silhouette, that Texas sunset, right? This photo says a lot without showing a lot. I'll say that again. This photo says a lot without showing a lot. We have no idea what color the horse is. We have no idea. I'm guessing it's a female, but we don't know. They have long hair, but it could be a guy. Only thing we can tell is it's a Western rider, right? Because that's the saddle. That's all we really know. So really good job on getting that nice sunset silhouette. I like it. Here's what I would do differently. This photo feels like it was shot from the photographer's eye level, and to really go all the way with that silhouette, I would want to get the horizon as close to their feet as possible so that we see more of their legs. And to do that, we would get lower, right? So we would have them fill more of the sky, right? We have that negative space in the sky. So to fill more of the space of the sky and minimize that foreground where it's more just the rider and just the horse. And we can see more of their legs in that silhouette. That's what I would change. Otherwise, it's beautiful. The other thing I would change, her left arm, if it moved like half an inch outside, would give her a more pleasing silhouette. By not having her arms locked into her body, it would make for more of a curve. So, and we like curves in general. So, otherwise, it's really pretty. Really pretty. All right, this one's from Miguel. Look at Miguel throwing us a curveball here. Normally it's street photography or some cool taxi cab in Cuba or something fun like that. And this time he sends us concrete. Concrete. But concrete's cool. I love shooting concrete. Probably my favorite background is just bare concrete to shoot portraits on. I love that look. I don't know why, but I just love that kind of like wet or like textured concrete. Love it. And this photo's great, right? Just a study in pattern repetition and highlights and shadows. Okay. And there's a pretty strong vignette on this photo. And so it really leads to that center. And so I think it's cool. I would say there's a couple things that I would correct on this photo. One, I think the lens geometry wasn't corrected for. Those lines on the outside, especially on the left side of the photo, are really starting to keystone, right? So they're coming in. Okay. And so for a photo like this, that needs to be so precise, we want everything to be perfectly straight. So if it doesn't do it automatically when you're in your software, generally your lens geometry would fix that. But if it doesn't, this is where the guided tool in Lightroom Transform is great. So you draw a line on the right edge, and you draw a line on the left edge, and then it'll straighten those lines out. Right? So you draw a line, then it goes whoop, and straightens them. So I think that would make it stronger just by really enhancing that perfect geometry and where our eye doesn't kind of wander off. The other thing I think there's 3 black squares right in the center that I think make a stronger composition than all of the squares. And so if we look at the first basically 3 black squares in the center, a composition around those 3 and really only those 3, I think would make for a more powerful abstract. So if we're going abstract, we shouldn't be able to tell really what it is. But in this case, we kind of can tell what it is. And so I think punching in a little bit more and really getting closer to show less. I think by showing less will make the brain work more. And that's kind of what we want with an abstract. But yeah, I would fix the geometry, see how that goes. And then from there, I think I would punch in, at least come up from the foreground. That front brick closest to us just seems taking up too much space, but it's not delivering enough value. So I'd kind of bring that up. Or maybe even a cinematic crop going kind of across where all those black shapes are and less of the white. Something to try. I'm not 100% sure that's going to work, but it feels like that could be right. So that's what I would do. All right. This one is from Jess. If you've seen my mode dial, my Let's Get Weird mode dial, right? If y'all have seen that, she was the one that put that together for us. So thanks, Jess. I appreciate it. And her question is, she's like, man, I feel like this photo's pretty good. But how do I get it to the next level? And I think that's a very fair question. I think she was using a speed light with a yellow gel on it. I think. Only because that's just what it feels like. And so my critique on this one, I like the purple top she's wearing with the yellow. I think that's a good choice for color combinations, right? Purple, yellow, that's a good color contrast. I think her skin on her left cheek needs to go one of 2 ways, right? It feels in between. It either needs to go brighter and even out with that yellow. See how that yellow gets a little hot around the right cheekbone? So we can either underexpose a photo and just expose for that yellow. I think that could be strong, right? Kind of, again, showing less kind of sometimes tells more. So I think if we brought down our total exposure so that yellow on her right cheekbone is the brightest thing, I think that could be very strong. Or underexpose that a little bit more and then make the cheek all of the way exposure. So it needs to be like a stop brighter in the skin, but underexpose that yellow. So you probably have to bring it up 2 stops. Now, cropping, right? She Captain Hooked her. She knew that. She already told me that. Her right hand's cooked. But also the left thumb. See how that left thumb is kind of coming in? And it's just kind of an awkward pose. So a lot of times I'll tell people like to hook their thumb into that belt loop. And that can be an easier way to get that same pose out of the arm, but with less tension in the hands. Just a way to soften up the hands, but still give that arm something to do. I do think this pose does a good job of defining her triceps. I think that works well. And I like that she's looking up and out. I would also say that I know she's shooting with an R6, and I know it has eye track, so we don't have to put our subjects in the center. I think with composition, right, we could say 2 different things, right? We could move her to one side and have a lot more negative space. I think we could move her in the direction that she's looking and make it feel very claustrophobic. Both are a choice. I'm not saying one's better than the other, but I don't know that this calls for center composition unless her arms were up and out and doing something to fill the rest of that space with. I also think from like her left eye over is pretty dark. So maybe like if you just bring that camera around a little bit to shoot more against that pine tree to where there is more texture in the background instead of kind of those dark shadows of that tree. And then the tree's kind of coming right out of her head. So we move that camera around just a little bit and shoot against more of that like cedar tree and less against the oak tree. I think that would make for more pleasing background as well. But yeah, I think without the flash on the front and just the yellow and then underexposing that, I think that'd make a very dramatic photo. But I love her pose. I love kind of like the fitness she's displaying, right? All those things are good. I like the jewelry, the colors, that's working, right? This photo's like 80% of the way there. I think taking that next step though, that's so hard. Jess has kind of shown a big jump lately in what she's doing, and it's really fun. It's exciting to go from like, I could see what I did. I think we all go through a stage where we can see what we want, but our gear doesn't get us there. And then we can kind of figure out how our gear gets us to what we see some of the way. But that last step where we can get exactly what we see, that's so hard. I mean, I struggle with it all the time. Right? Perfectly executing a vision. I've talked about my struggles with that in the past. I don't even know that that's possible. But getting close, right? Getting fairly close to that, I think, is an exciting place to get to. But that's that next step of like, okay, I got the gear, it's working for me. I'm getting good stuff, but it's just not all the way there. It can be that's a tough challenge, right? Once you have that first step of growth, it's kind of hard to play refinement game for a while you wait for that next step of growth. So I would encourage y'all just keep shooting, just really working on refinement, right? All those little things, hand placement, hand posing, where are my arms, where are my hands, where are my eyes, where are my lips, right? Where am I looking? Yeah, it's hard, especially if it's just you, like you and a model or like you in the landscape. It's one of the reasons I love shooting with a group of people. It's always better to have more hands on deck. Hey, hold this, do that, help me with this, I'll help you with that. I just think that's a much easier flow of shooting, right, where we can help each other, be each other's assistants. But also, like when I'm worried about lighting and when I'm thinking about those things, I may not be thinking about posing as much as I would like to. So it's always good to have somebody on set to be like, oh, hey, fix your necklace. Oh, hey, why don't you move your hand this way? Because they can look for that. They can look for that stuff where you're kind of blind to it when you're thinking so much about the technical side. Yeah, this is from Mr. Brian. Who'd have guessed? Brian submits a black and white photo. Shocked, I tell you. I can't believe there's gambling going on in this bar. No, but this is a really cool photo. This is a great use of layering to tell a story, right? Your eye immediately goes to, I can't breathe. And then what do you see? And then your eye kind of works backwards, right, into a triangle. So you see that we have a triangle from I can't breathe to cop. I'm assuming both cops. Yeah, both cops. Right. And so we have this strong triangle right there. I think it really works. I think it tells the story it's trying to tell very well. These types of photos are very hard to get. Sometimes you just sit and focus on the sign and wait for the composition to happen, which is opposite of generally how I work. I generally try to work very hard to put my subjects where I want them, and I don't like it when they move around. And so it's hard to set up and wait for the composition to come to you. I don't have a lot of patience. I think y'all know me by now. I'm kind of high strung. I have a lot of energy. I don't like sitting still. And so it can be difficult to do that. But I really like the triangle of, helmet, sign, right? And that little triangle just keeps working. So good job. I love the black and white. The black and white, right? Again, it kind of makes it timeless. Like, we probably know when this photo was taken. But I think in 20 years, it'll add some timelessness to it, whereas it may be so fresh in our minds right now. So good photo, Brian. I really like the composition there. This is from Miss Mia. Talk about composition. So we talked about composition where everything was centered. And this is interesting because one eye is centered, but we can't even really see the other. So again, right, playing with highlights and shadows, right? What do we expose for? What do we let fall to the shadows? Sometimes I get so excited to light that I forget to just let things fall to the shadows. I want to light everything, but sometimes less is more. The other thing I like about this photo, and it's not always apparent right away in this one, but it's like a velvet corset with like a man's tweed jacket. And so there's some fun stuff going on in like what she's wearing. That I think is very interesting. And this photo was taken by, I think, Mike Zamaripa, I think is what she told me. I hope I'm right on that. I don't like getting people's names wrong. But I love the hand, right? It's a strong hand, strong jacket, but then revealing something underneath, right? It's that fun playfulness. And I don't know that she's smiling, but it feels like she has a smirk just about to happen. But I love that you can't see. I love that you kind of can't see the other eye, and I love that you can't see the mouth. And so, again, we're showing less. A little bit, right? That works both ways, but we're not giving the viewer everything they want to see, which normally we want to see the lips, we want to see the eyes. And by taking that decision away from them, it forces us to look at just the things that the photographer wants us to look at, which is the eye, the hand, the shoulder. I think it's cool. I really like the brown felt corset versus the jacket. I just think that's a neat pairing. So yeah, love your shot. All right, Mr. Steven. An owl. Where was this owl taken? I'm kind of curious now, because this is like a fledgling, right? Oh, and I just realized you were using your better beamer on this, weren't you? Interesting. Yeah, Steven, give me the technicals on this one, because it feels like that sky is nice and underexposed, so I'm guessing you might have had a polarizer on it. It just feels like it did, but then it also might have had a better beamer flash. If you look at the catch light in the owl's eyes, you see that little white dot right there? That means that I'm guessing a flash was used. I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about this photo. I feel like I actually don't want the flash on this one. I kind of like that. So if we compare this photo with the last one, it's kind of similar and what could have been. So I think this owl's right eye, so if you're looking at the left of our vision, Mills Pond, yeah. I kind of wish it had gone darker and had that contrast. This photo just feels a little flat to me. I don't know, like some of the hair feels a little underexposed, but the shadows feel boosted in some areas. I don't know. It's very busy. It's cool. I know it's hard to get. I'm guessing it's zoomed in like crazy or shot at a crazy focal length. I'm guessing 400 to 600 mil would be my guess. I don't know. There's just something about it that feels off. Maybe it's just that direct flash that I'm reading. I keep telling people that I'm going to set up a light trap around the birds at my bird feeder outside my house, and I just haven't done it. I need to. I'm really curious what I could do with flash and birds, because I keep telling people that's something to do. I've been out to Mills Pond. It's hard to shoot. I got nothing the last time I went. So this is cool that you're nice and close. I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about this. It feels like parts are overexposed, but then it also feels like parts of the shadows are boosted too much. I want to see more contrast, but then the leaves are contrasted with the background. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. Maybe it's just because it's punched in a whole bunch. I don't know. Steven, help me out. What should I have done better in my critique here? I don't know. I'm losing it. I'm losing it. Yeah. I would have darkened the shadows on the face. I want more contrast in the eyes between the two. I want it to look more like that, less like this. Just in terms of the eyes and the shadows. I don't want to put a tweed jacket on the owl. That's not what I mean. All right. So this one's from Patty Robertson. I'm guessing from her swamp trip. This is very cool. I like the juxtaposition of nature and man. And I don't know what this thing is, but it looks cool. But I also like how low the camera is, and making this metal structure feel up, right? So when we talked about that horse silhouette, right, this is something you could have done. That pump or whatever it is probably only 2 feet tall, but by getting the camera lower, it makes it feel much taller. Okay, so we're making that feel up. I love the sunrise and kind of the swamps on either side. I think that's all really cool. It feels like this camera is slightly askew to the center. If we look at that row of nails that's keeping the boards together, I kind of want the center of the camera to be right on it. Like the camera just feels slightly to the left. And so my horizontals aren't quite horizontal. You don't have any idea what that metal thing is. That's fun. Yeah, it's cool, right? It's cool texture. And then the light hitting it, right? That beautiful early morning light with that nice clouds. Like, it's all great. I think the camera, like an inch to the right, would make this a stronger photo. Because then those nails would have led right up to that thing, I think. But also, the geometry of our, what is this thing called? Deck, I guess. The deck is just a little bit off. That right side is just a little bit higher than our right. And so just moving it over just like that much, where that center dot would have gone right through those lines. Sometimes, like when I'm shooting cars or something where I need that symmetry, I will hit if I hit my center button for focus points, it'll bring it right back into the center. And then I'll bring things like straight down just to help me compose, because it feels right in my eye when I'm looking through it. But then I realize I'm off like 10 degrees to the left or 10 degrees to the right. And so by doing that or using the guidelines, most cameras nowadays have, if you hit like info or display, it'll give you those overlays that you can use to compose, especially in live view. And so I just wish this was just a little bit to the right, where those nails run right up to that metal thing. And I think that takes it from like an 85 to like a 90, right? Just that little bit makes just that next little, and again, that's kind of what we're talking about with refinement, right? Where it's that little bit that goes from like good to great. It's little things. It's paying attention to like just those little bitty things. And I'm guilty of it as anybody else. I miss them too, right? There's so much going on. We're trying to do 5 things. We don't notice the 6th, 7th, and 8th. So yeah, the other thing, Patty, clean your sensor. There's a lot of dust spots, especially in the top left, in the top right, and in the center left. So we'll get some of those dust spots cleaned up. There's one in the top left that's just distracting against that black sky, or the nice orange and blue sky. The other weird thing about Lightroom is that it doesn't auto-update the sources for dust spots. So you can't just say, here's all my dust spots, and then sync it. It doesn't auto-update for every photo. It pulls from the exact same spots. So it's kind of useless to sync dust spot removal in Lightroom. I would recommend against syncing dust spot removal in Lightroom. It'll make your life difficult. Yeah. All right, this is from Austin. This is an overhead shot of a steak. It feels very red. I'm curious if the photo was under one of those like orange lights, or like the warming lights. Mashed potatoes are hard. It's a fine line in mashed potatoes between overexposed and underexposed. Sky looks amazing outside right now, by the way. Just going to throw that out there. But his photos just feels very red. And there's red highlights, which makes me think that there's a red light above it. So that's very hard to correct against that. Dust spots are birds. I think it's dust spots, Steven. I think. Just by the shape of them. So yeah, the mashed potatoes feel a little too orange. The steak feels a little too red. The asparagus feels a little bit too green. I mean, it's a little too much orange. So I've tried to shoot under those dishes, and it's very hard. Like shooting a catering shot, and they're using like they're cutting the pot roast or whatever under that red light. It's especially for digital sensors, it does not like that color. Like those deep reds and those like electric blues, digital sensors don't like that as well. I like the composition. I like that you don't try to show the whole circle. But let's look at another one. I know you sent me another one. There we go. A drink photo. Two things about this photo. One, you told me that you wanted the negative space on the left. I get it. Want to put text where that green is. Totally get that. Great use. I love the pink and green contrast. I just feel like this photo's like 10% too punched in. I want to see the base of that glass. Just back it up, back up like 4 inches. And it's probably the right composition. It just feels a little bit, that cherry feels a little bit too close at top, and the glass feels weird being cut off just at the bottom. I do like the highlight coming across on the glass on the right side to give it that three-dimensionality. I think that's good. I like seeing that effervescence in the bubbles. Both of those good. This glass does feel like that cold, going for that sexy look. Was not just red LED. Oh, sexy. Yeah, that's tough. I got it. I got you, Austin. Yeah, just a little bit on that crop at the bottom. I just would have liked to have seen just a little bit more of the glass. Also, I think for the red sexy, I think that's a 2-light setup where the reds are filling in from like the height of the plate above, not directly above the food, but from like the back. So there's some red coming because you're shooting overhead. So if you're shooting overhead, that red coming down from like 12 o'clock position. And then on the steak one, and then a fill light coming from the front. That may be a way to go with that a little more, because those mashed potatoes are tough. They eat up light in a weird way. Like they're kind of wet, but they're kind of textury. I've tried to shoot them. I have a hard time shooting mashed potatoes. Not gonna lie. Yeah, LED under the glass. I like the glow. I like all that. I just want to pull back just like that much. Yeah, but good. I like the pink and green. I think the pink and green work well, and I really like that side light that's lighting up the glass on that side. Looks good. All right, this one's from Kendra. Another black and white wedding photo. Kind of an interesting one, right? We're not used to, our eyes want to go to the bride and groom, but I think this one is establishing place. I think this one is establishing that this took place at Pilot Knob Winery, right? So we know where it took place. Miguel, what's up, man? And so I think it's interesting, right? It's good to have these as a way to establish place. Right. Well, we get tons of photos of the bride and groom. We don't need every photo to be a bride and groom. So we need some to tell the rest of the story. The rest of the story here is, where did it happen? Oh, it happened with these big wine bottles, right, that say Pilot Knob on them. And so I think in that case, this is good. I will say, again, y'all know me, I'm a geometry snob. I think the lines on the right-hand side of the frame, they're kind of running at angles. And so a little geometry fix, lens correction and transform would help that out quite a bit. It's just, especially that right window, those two windows are just really kind of running away. But I like it. I like that it's different. I'm curious why you switched it to black and white. Was it a white balance issue, or did you want it to go to black and white? That's whenever I see wedding photos, that's always kind of what I want to know is, is it black and white for aesthetic choices, which fine, or was it because the white balance got weird? And then do we need to work on that, just as a way to figure out what things we need to work on? So yeah, I like it. I like the texture. Weddings are tough to shoot right now because all the guests are wearing masks or, they have been for the last year. So it can be tough, right? So, we're so used to seeing bright, happy, shiny faces at weddings. And then when everybody's got a mask up or, whatever this year, it's made things a little bit more difficult. Because those photos that you want to look back on 20 years from now, you don't necessarily want to remember that it took place one of the worst years in history. So it can be tough. It can be tough to frame photos in ways that we're not used to framing, so that we can exclude the stuff we don't want to show. So cool, awesome, Miguel. We talked about punching in your photo just a little bit. and then straightening up your geometry. In case you're wondering, if you want the TLDR version of what I said, punch in and a lot of brown happening in this room. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's totally fine. I get that. Some wedding venues make interesting lighting choices where there's a whole franchise of them that's yellow pine with very yellow lighting, and it's almost impossible to shoot. And if you're not using like a lot of lighting to neutralize all that, oh, if you're an ambient light only photographer, like all of your photos they're just yellow. Like there's nothing you can do about it. The walls are yellow and the lights are yellow. Bleh. Tough. That's why I love off-camera lighting, because we can neutralize all that. So yeah, so I hope you all kind of got from today that, there's kind of like where we started. We have that big ramp up, right? We get our first real good camera, first good lenses, makes things a little bit easier. Our photos get better. We build that confidence, and then it's like, man, now what? How can we get? And so we struggled. Then we had a hockey stick growth, and then we're going to struggle again for a while. And all I can tell you, if it seems like I think we're all in that place at some version of that story. And so just keep working on refinement. 100% honest. I work on it all the time. I miss hand placements all the time. I miss a bunch of stuff all the time. And it's just constantly trying to remember one more thing while you're shooting. Trying to remember one more thing. Some of it, I think you have to learn the technical. I think you have to internalize the technical stuff so much so that you can forget it, right? Like Picasso says, as a child, I painted as a child, and then I learned how to paint as an adult. And then for the rest of my life, I tried to paint like a child again. I find a lot of solace in that quote, in that I get caught up trying to light too much. And I get caught up trying to do too much instead of just letting the photos happen. And still allowing for spontaneity to happen, instead of having everything so posed and so precise, just letting things go with the flow a little bit more. That's a hard balance for me. And just working on that tension is something that I'm always working on. And so having those levels and those struggles is totally normal. Having that struggle of like, man, I just don't feel like I'm getting better. If you're feeling that, you probably are. You just don't see the results from it yet. The process is probably right. You're just not seeing the results yet. But just keep working on refinement. Keep taking care of all the little things, and the big things will happen. So yeah, that's what we got for today. Episode 20. Can you believe it? If you don't subscribe to this channel, please do. We're marching steadily on my goal to get to 1,000 subscribers. We're inching closer to 200. So tell your friends. We would love to get more. We would love to be talking to as many people as we can. And if y'all have suggestions for what the next Lightroom Live should be, I'm all ears. I don't know exactly which direction I should go next with that. If we want to do more user-submitted photos and just do like live edits, or if there's certain topics. I feel like there's a new update coming soon from Lightroom. It's been about 9 months since the real big update. And so I feel like there should be another big update coming soon. I don't know when. I don't know that. It just feels like it. I just feel like there's maybe September, there'll be a big update. But yeah, if you have Lightroom questions, or if there's topics you want me to cover more in depth, I would love to hear that so that I can do some more Lightroom Lives. I think people enjoy them. I'm just running out of things that I want to talk about. So I'd love to answer some of y'all's questions if you have some. Yeah, very cool. Otherwise, I hope y'all have a safe evening. Go take a sunset photo real quick because the sky looks awesome. And we will talk to y'all. I don't know when we're going to talk to y'all next. I guess June sometime. June's going to be crazy, but we'll set up some times in June. So anyway, hope you have a great night. Great seeing everybody, and look to see you in person soon. Awesome. Have a good night.